This is Everything is Personal with Len and May.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Everything is Personal. As always, Mr. John Small, how are you?
Hey, man.
Thank you.
It is great to be back. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas, whatever
Yeah.
you celebrate, Christmaka, holiday,
Whatever.
whatever we celebrate.
I celebrate everything because when you have kids, you have to give presents. So
Yeah.
every single holiday counts. We're doing Kwanzaa now because you have presents on that too. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
All
it
of
doesn't
them.
matter. I know. We're the worst Jews. We just have a Christmas tree and there's tons of presents under that tree and the kids just rip into them. And there's not a Christian ounce of blood in me, but we just celebrate it.
It's a Hanukkah bush. We have the same thing. Yeah.
It's the largest Hanukkah bush that ever existed. A 6-foot Hanukkah bush.
Well, we have Jewish ornaments. Does that count?
All right. Our guest is probably wondering, what the heck are these guys talking about?
I could jump in. I'm half Jewish.
Yeah. He's just like, are they going to ever introduce me?
Yeah, we have a guest today, right?
Oh yeah.
We have a guest. Super excited. So let me just introduce, and I'll let our guest introduce himself too, but I'll give a little bit of an intro. So today I'm excited to have Jesse Krieger join us, and Jesse's a friend now, and also he is the publisher of the next New York Times bestseller. It's called Making Cannabis Personal.
Oh, nice.
I have a personal relationship with it. It's my book, so I'm just giving a plug, but just that's not the reason why Jesse's on, because I think he should get such an interesting story that fits what we talk about. And there was a lot of correlation, but it so happens to be an amazing publisher and an entrepreneur. And I think he'll tell you, or the audience as well, about his own New York Times bestseller that he had, and the ability to be able to learn through his own actions and be able to put that into a book and then help other people through that. I think it's pretty impressive. So welcome, Jesse. Thank you for being on.
Thanks, Len. I really appreciate that. And thanks, John. I'm glad to be here. Excited for this conversation.
Yeah.
Me too.
So tell our audience a little bit about, I mean, I gave an intro, but I mean, it's so, you have such a diverse, vast background with a musical note that kind of is a thread all the way through. So that's kind of us
That's
too.
a good launching off point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then? Yeah. I mean, like for me, I got a Fender Stratocaster and discovered Jimi Hendrix when I was 13. Woo! And it was like game over. And for the next 10 years, music was truly the reason I was alive. It was my purpose. I was so excited to be playing music and learning guitar and music, at the expense of everything else, right? So started playing bands, didn't do so great in high school, not for a lack of aptitude, but just because I didn't really care.
Yeah.
And, ultimately took that quite a ways. Went to the Los Angeles Music Academy straight out of high school. So moved to Pasadena, was doing 10, 12 hours a day of learning music theory, harmony,
Wow.
paying the clubs on Sunset to let us go play.
Right.
That was how it really started, was paying the Cat Club to go perform at their spot on Sunset.
Right.
Which I'll come back to in a moment.
Do you split ticket sales on that when you do that? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
You have to get a certain amount. You have to get like your friends. Hey guys, come in, and you split ticket sales. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the unglamorous side of the music industry where you pay to play, like
Right.
literally. But what happened there, I was at LA Music Academy. 80% of the student body was international. So I started to meet these people from Germany, Japan, India, all over. I was like, wow, there's a whole world out there. And it got me really interested to go travel and explore. So a few of my friends from growing up invited me on a Euro trip. And so there I was, 19, music, brought a backpack and guitar and was traveling Europe with my buds. There's a bunch of cool stories there, but the one that I think counts is I met another American guy named Scott from Florida who had been playing on the streets and playing solo in bars and clubs for the last 6-7 months. And I met him performing in a park, no less, in Vienna, Austria. And we just struck up a conversation. And I was like, you know, those moments where it's like, oh, so that's possible. I was like, oh, so that's possible. You've been traveling all over Europe, living fancy free, playing music, and that's it. So that planted a seed. The night before we were supposed to fly home, we were at a Nice, France, celebrating all of our travels and so forth. Stumble out at like 2 a.m. One thing led to another, and a bunch of French guys jumped me and my friends. The worst fight I've been in, got my butt kicked, and fortunately survived, no serious injuries. But I remember thinking on the walk home, I was like, there's no way this is the end of the story. Like, I'm gonna fly home like bloodied and bruised and move in with my parents and like decide whatever. And then I saw the alternative was skip my ticket home, go meet up with Scott, and basically just be a street musician and figure it out that way. So guess which one I chose?
You went home.
Yeah.
That'd make a boring
Still living with your
podcast.
parents. Yeah. Still living with your parents.
Yeah.
They're
And
upstairs.
here we are 30 years later.
Right. Dad?
I'm in the basement right now.
Yeah, like,
All right.
in the
Street musician.
camera,
I
"Mom,
love
be
it.
quiet."
So you're a street musician in Europe.
Yeah, so I skipped out of my ticket home. My friends couldn't believe what they were seeing. They got on the train, went away. And I remember standing on this platform like, the future is wide open. I went to Vienna, moved in with Scott. We started performing as a duo. We'd play on the streets and in bars and clubs. And we were living in a youth hostel.
The
basically.
original music, or do you play?
At this point,
covers?
this was covers
Right.
with a little bit of our own music. But this story could become incredibly long-winded. So let me kind of tie it together here. So I spent the next year traveling around Europe, playing guitar, doing the thing, totally took a hard left on this traditional life path thing that I never actually got on. But through that experience, we met someone who was at the School of Audio Engineering. So he'd bring me and Scott in, and we'd do the midnight to 6 a.m. shift, free recording in School of Audio Engineering, Vienna. And I was like, oh, the other side of the glass is interesting. Planted another seed. Eventually, after a year of travels and all that fun stuff, I was like, all right, I want to do something for real. So moved to Nashville, went to School of Audio Engineering. And that's where I met my bandmate and my first business partner, Jake Harsh, who was also in an audio engineering program. So we moved in on Music Row. We started writing our own music and performing. We started producing other artists and just doing like music like never before. And out of that was born my band, Harsh Krieger. Jake Harsh, Jesse Krieger. We thought it was like a Led Zeppelin kind of thing. Sounded cool.
Yeah.
But we only played original. We never played a cover. And that was where, you know, that's a through line that carries through to even my publishing work, but just creative expression for its own sake, finding that most beautiful melody and rhythm and harmony and arguing over it and doing it. And so there was so many like creative battles in that point of my life. It was emotionally a lot, but at the same time, I was like, we are actually doing it. And piece by piece, we started to get enough attention where we could have either signed a record deal or like pursued that pathway. Or I saw the alternative was if we just started our own record label and learned enough about business to manage our career, that was starting to look more appealing. Mm. So I volunteered. I ran the idea by Jake. I foolishly said, hey, I'll do everything on the business side if you just agree to this. And he did eventually agree to it, and he held me to that. So then started our record label, Tabula Rasa Records, Latin for blank slate, and brought some like family friends. My dad introduced me to a few of his clients that were entrepreneurial and formed some sort of a brain trust to advise me on how to kind of effectively run a record label and raise some money and do that whole thing. So from age 21 to 23 is when it really played out. We raised about 115,000 over 6 months of, you know, begging, borrowing, whatever, to whoever would listen. Had enough money to executive produce our record, hired a team, people 10 years or more older than myself working for us, and ultimately got a distribution deal through Sony's Red imprint label, their Relativity Entertainment distribution back then. So the net effect was we had our record distributed nationwide through an imprint of Sony, had her music on 300 stations, 9 songs on MTV, not music videos, but synced with Real World, Road Rules, shows like that, and came back to LA, performed at the Viper Room across the street from Cat Club, where we used to pay to play, at a showcase with people from the industry and all that hoopla. And that was like a coming full circle of this first real era of my life of young idealistic rock musician becomes record label owner, lead guitarist, co-writer, and makes good.
Right. That's cool. And what? So that was your label.
That's the music thing. Can I just point something out that I find kind of funny? Maybe it's funny for me. So there's a movie, you say Eurotrip, right? So there's a movie called Eurotrip, and the lead, they have this thing, the guy's name is Scotty, and your friend was Scott, and they sing this song like Scotty didn't know because his girlfriend was cheating on him, Scotty. I don't know if anybody saw that movie, but it's got really, really funny.
Eurotrip, I love that movie.
Yeah. So no, it's Eurotrip.
Oh, Eurotrip.
Euro. You were saying you were on a Euro trip with a guy named Scotty, and then there's a really funny moment in this. I know it's like one of my squirrel moments, so I digress for a second. But because you said it, it played that movie in my head. Like Fred Armisen plays this guy who's an Italian tourist. So these kids are on the train, they're on this Euro trip through different countries, and he gets in their cabin in the train cabin, and he sits between the two guys, and every single time there's a tunnel, he gets closer to them, or he puts his arm around them, or puts his leg on them, and they're like, oh, and the light comes on, and he's like, oh, scusa.
Yeah, mi scusi.
Funny. So sorry, I digress.
No, I met some
you
real
said Scotty, you said
like
Eurotrip, man. It just eliminated me.
They exist. They're real people like that. We could do a whole episode on funny Eurotrip stories.
Yes,
that is hilarious.
Me being 17.
So from music, how did you get into publishing and then publishing your own book?
Well, here's that leap. So like the whole takeaway from the music aspect of my life was, it was in the middle of our second US tour in 2005, and by many outward appearances, like we were doing it. I had a moment where I was like, wow, 16-year-old me's giving me a round of applause right now, kind of, even though we're in a van reading at Denny's, but I was a rock musician on tour with listening to our song on the radio. And in that moment, I was like, there's no way I can see myself doing this when I'm 40. And that was, I think when I look back through my life, there's milestones, or there was a few major moments that only became more significant later on. But that was one of them, of thinking, well, if I don't do the only thing I ever wanted to do, what the hell else would I actually do? And I started to actually think about, well, what would I do if I wasn't doing that, if I wasn't in music forever? And eventually, at the end of that album cycle and everything, when we were sitting down, it just became so clear with my bandmate and I that it was time to wind things down, like responsibly, and for me to go my own way. And everybody else from that period of time is still in the music industry. It's kind of wild. And that kind of speaks to an interesting part of my life journey, which is I've become so embedded and so involved in different spaces, and music for sure, and there's been others, but then I change, or I allow myself to change,
right?
And have had, in that sense, like a number of lifetime experiences in this one life. So fast forward, I got out of music. I started consulting with other people in the music business. That turned into consulting for other companies, moved back to the Bay Area, actually did move back in with my parents for a little bit in my late 20s. And then started to see that a common thread with most businesses is at some point they need money, capital to grow. Started getting interested in finance and wound up kind of talking my way into becoming vice president of investment banking at a boutique securities firm, still with no college degree. But what I saw is that if I could put deals together or bring together companies that needed investors and investors looking for opportunities, nobody cared if I went to school or not. Right. And that was another thread that eventually led to me writing a book of my own, Lifestyle Entrepreneur. Live your dreams, ignite your passions, and run your business from anywhere in the world. Which, quite frankly, through my 20s was what I was doing in one way, shape, or form. Figuring out how to travel, do enough with business to underwrite that, and have fun experiences and live the dream, so to speak. And so that turned into a writing process where I kind of got tired of answering the question of like, no, what are you doing? Like, what do you really do? Or how do you think about that? Or why are you on like your third company in an unrelated industry? It seems so natural to me. Like, I always have felt like I've followed that inner voice and that inner prompting. And yet I decided to try and answer that definitively. And that was what started the writing process. So then I had this book. At that time, I had a business operating in Asia and was studying Chinese and had been living over there on and off for a number of years, and met who became my first publisher. I actually didn't publish my own book. The first publisher I had was Kanyan Publications out of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We did a print-only release, 2012, because I was the tall white guy that could speak Chinese who was willing to come over and promote the book. So they got behind it. And next thing you know, I'm speaking at book fairs, I'm signing books, shaking hands, kissing babies, I like to say, but kind of talked my way into becoming the #2 business bestseller in Southeast Asia with that version of Lifestyle Entrepreneur. I knew ultimately though, or that was another kind of moment where I was like, do I really want to build my career in Asia, or do I want to like in America? And that was sort of the coming home. Was I found my second publisher, Morgan James, published my book in the US and the rest of the world. But in that whole process of updating it and releasing it here in 2014, I thought it was going to be like in Asia, where I'd show up and there's a 30-foot tall hanging of me outside of a book fair. And it wasn't like that at all. It was like crickets. So then I was like, okay, do I figure out book marketing and really understand what makes this work, or just kind of claim victory and move on and do something else? And it was that confluence that leads us up to the present. I know this has been kind of a winding, wild story, but after my book came out here, and at first it didn't do great, but then I relaunched it and it became a bestseller in the US as well. And in that process, my friends that were working on books started to ask my advice. One conversation after another ended with, can you just do it for me? And then I decided to say yes. And 6 years later, Done For You Publishing is the primary and only way that we work with authors in an all-inclusive publishing support format that can start with just an idea or with a manuscript, but leads all the way to a published book that's distributed, available everywhere books are sold, and really positioning that book as like your best business development tool. The way, the book, the book, where if somebody reads it, they get to know the real you and become and learn something, of course, but in that fashion, like reach out to you ready to go. And that's something I'd love to talk about maybe on sometime on this interview, the value of a book and what it can do. But that's a little bit of my background and how I arrived here where I am. My mother's
I'm super grateful because you made all those pivots and you made those mistakes and you had those learning experiences. So I get to benefit from that because you know, your company being a publisher of my book, I get guidance on what to do because this is a whole new chapter for me that I'm not really used to. So having that experience and dealing with other authors over the years and understanding, you know, how to navigate that has been really helpful for me too. So I'm grateful for that.
Sure. In my view, we're just getting started. Like I'm so excited for your book, for making cannabis personal. And you've got some amazing stories too. I know you share some of them through this podcast, but everyone's in for a treat when this book drops.
Otherwise, nobody's going to get the book.
I know. It's little teasers. Everybody just, whatever you hear.
Well, what was it? Can I ask what the process was? And thank you really for sharing all that. It's really interesting, your genesis and evolution. I'm curious what the process was with Len. Like, how did you guys go from Len having an idea for a book to actually getting a book created?
Well, I can speak to that, or you can, Len, but Len had written the book by the time we connected, and we met through a mutual friend who
Right.
I consider the person that introduced us. He's in my like top 5 of favorite people in the world, the most adventurous, just incredible guy.
Mhm.
And so an introduction from someone like that, I'll pay a little extra attention to. And in fact, Len's the first and only author he's ever recommended I speak to. So that was how we connected. I'm sure, Len, you could speak to
Yeah,
more
I
of
mean,
like,
that's
well,
it.
just what brought you to writing the book to the point where we met. But
It took, so I wanted to write a book about, people always tell me you have great stories, you should write them down. And I'm not a writer. So for me, I need to find a process will work for me. And what worked for me was recording myself. So I think I talked in the pod before about this unique memory that I have where I can play like little movies and clips. So I can get pretty detailed in describing an event that may have happened. But they're not linear, they're all over the place. So like so there was something that happened in 1993 and there was something that happened in 2018. So I would just record myself. And then I was lucky enough that I met Brian Kaufman, who's my co-author. And what he did for the last 2 years we worked together, he would kind of transcribe what I would record and then kind of put his own spin on it. And then we would meet twice a week and we review those chapters and go over and make those edits. And the first go around, I sent it to a couple of people and I got some interesting feedback and I reread it. I was like, man, this is not my voice. So what he was doing, he was taking my recording and putting into a structure that was, he's a PhD in English literature and he's a professor in that. So my writing isn't that style and it lost kind of my soul. So we rewrote the whole thing again. And once we did that, it was another 9-10 months, whatever it took. And then there was a completed book. It still has some edits and Jesse's company is helping me with getting it just little tidbits here honed in so we can make it even better, the best book that we can possibly put out there. And this is only book number 1. There'll be others. We'll have a everything is personal book coming out soon too.
Nice.
Why not? All right. We'll have all our stories that we have on this pod. It'd be interesting for people to read. But yeah, that's basically how. And Jesse's right. We have a mutual friend who I think is a really special person too. When he connected us, because I was looking for publishers, but I was going to self-publish because I don't know. It's like, these advanced. I don't know anything about the business, but there's a level of trust, right? When you get a recommendation from somebody that you have a connection with. So that's kind of how the genesis. That's how it came up.
No, I love hearing that. And what, if I may, it makes me think of 2 things. One, that's how I meet almost every author. It's through referrals, personal introductions. It's a very personal business. Speaking of everything is personal, publishing is personal too. But the other is, Jonathan asked, like, how would I take someone from an idea through? You kind of went through a process similar that I would facilitate of like, if you're not a writer's writer, you don't enjoy the actual writing process, then speak it out or set up a content structure and just let someone rip and then guide that into text form. There's a lot of ways to create a book other than just writing it, but ultimately, once it's down on paper, then you can work with it as we are now, as a whole, with an editorial team and then away we go into the publishing process. But
yeah, so my goal is to be on Oprah and have Oprah be like, I recommend this book as part of our book club. That's my goal.
Well, you're doing some amazing stuff just through EndoCanna and EndoDNA and everything you're up to. So I don't know how much airtime that gets on the pod, but the book is so connected to a really groundbreaking approach you have with expanding the reach and medicinal and benefits of cannabis. So I'm a huge advocate for that too.
But seriously, so Ben, Len, I think I'd be for other people listening to this, and I'm a professional writer, but I haven't even written a book, which is incredible. I've ghostwritten a lot of books for people. But I'm always telling people, oh, you should have a book as part of my ghostwriting business. But tell me why you wanted to have a book. And this can sort of get into what Jesse was saying about why it's important for people to have books. Why was it? I mean, yes, you want to be on Oprah. That's a great dream, but there's more practical reasons, right? Too. Talk a little bit about that. I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, the real reason why I wanted to write a book is because I wanted to record my stories. That was the main reason why I started writing it. And I'll tell you where the idea stemmed from. So my grandmother, who passed away, she was a Holocaust survivor, and she was a partisan, like a freedom fighter in Poland. And she ended up getting late stage dementia, which turned into Alzheimer's. So I would come over, and she wouldn't remember what she bought like an hour ago, but she would sit down and tell stories what happened 30, 40, 50, whatever, many years ago. And I was like, oh my God, I have to start recording these stories. And I never did. And she passed away. And I was like, fuck, like I missed out. It was incredible stories. So I went to the Museum of Tolerance in LA, the Holocaust Museum, and they have a library there, which is a USC library that you can go in and you can look at people. Steven Spielberg, after Schindler's List, he did this whole foundation where you can record people talking about their stories. So he transcribed them and recorded them. So I found a video of my grandmother speaking for 3 hours with somebody. So all these interviews. And I was like, holy shit. And I went and I got DVD versions of everything, and I gave it to my whole family. And I was like, man, I don't want to ever be in this position, because these stories are great. Obviously not as great as hers, and not as dramatic and all that stuff, but still, I think I have stories. So that was the original idea of trying to write something with that. But then what happened was, through the process, I started getting personal stories of people that we were helping. And I wanted to, and I always feel like when people can connect to a personal story, that resonates much more than when you just talk in generalities. So I can talk about Sally, I can talk about Mikey, I can talk about an actual experience, so somebody can relate to that. So in writing that book, that was the thread. It was my stories, but also how, DNA and how personal experiences with cannabis and overall health and wellness, how affected individuals. So somebody can relate to this, and, oh, that's me. I have the same kind of thing, or my aunt has that. And that's the reason why, because I want everybody to sort of get rid of this whole stigma and understand that you're not alone. And every single time I have conversations with people, and I'll talk about this later on our pod, that one of the people I spoke with yesterday told me, you know what? It's really good to know that I'm not alone on an island. There's other people who share the same thing. And that's the reason why I wanted to kind of convey that.
It's great.
That's really beautifully said. Reflect on, I came at my book from the opposite vector of yours, and I've come to appreciate so much the value of story. I'll just share what I mean. It's like when I really felt like I need to write, it was after I had just sold a business, and I was like, if I don't write this down now, I'll start to forget the real practical, tangible steps that somebody else could do. And so it started from a how-to that was so clinical almost. And it wasn't until I met my first publisher when they're like, we got to know each other, and like, you've got some great stories. Like, why don't you weave some of those in there too, instead of writing a how-to textbook for a specific kind of business? And so it went from very specific to looking at it from the incorporating the stories of myself and others that illustrate the point. And it strikes me that you sort of started from the other end of the spectrum of so many stories and a desire that they, live on and can impact others. And then somewhere it blends with, what you've done business-wise, or that somebody can have a learning takeaway from the book. That it's not just an autobiography. Otherwise, there's, memoirs and autobiographies. But
No, you're absolutely right. That's the whole thing. But and to answer your question, John, like, I could never decide, because like, it feels narcissistic to me I'm going to write this memoir of my stories, like what happened in the club and the fight that we got into. Like, who gives a shit about all that? But people are interested in hearing those stories. But I'm like, well, if this is just a part of it, if I can use this to get people's interest, but also use this as a takeaway to sort of convey valuable information, that was the difficulty of putting those two pieces together. As Jesse was saying, it's the same kind of thing. You don't want it to be just all stories. Well, you can, but that's not what I wanted. It didn't feel like authentic to me. And I want it to be, something that people can connect to.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
That's very cool.
But I don't know how to
Oh, I
write.
pulled one other thing out of what you're saying, Len, that I think so valuable. It's worth mentioning that like the stories about specific conditions, just by telling that story, somebody can raise their hand and be like, I thought I was all alone. I didn't know anybody else experienced this. And it's actually through those stories, and if there's any strategy through it, it's having a good story about each of the major things that somebody could relate to.
Right.
In your case, if that's a health condition or something like that, then a story on each one will reach the widest number of people, because in reading the book, they'll point at that one and be like, wow, that one really lands with me.
Yep, exactly. I connect to Sally. That's exactly what I have. That makes sense. So Jesse, we talk about lots of different things on here, but there's a common thread about cannabis use. So we ask several questions. So you're on a hot seat now. We're going to ask you a few questions and to get your feedback on these, and then we'll let you
okay, sure,
plug whatever you want to plug, and then you're welcome to start your New Year's plans early and go on your way. But so please describe your first experience with cannabis, if you remember.
I do. I think I was 14. It was in Town Park. It was like a little park near where I grew up, a suburb north of San Francisco. I was with a few friends, and somebody had some weed, and so we like smoked it in a bush behind the Candy Stop, which was the place that you knew would sell you cigarettes even if you were underage. I never smoked, but that was like this place to go smoke in the bush. So we smoked, and like for a few moments didn't really feel much, but then looking back on it, we wound up at my friend's house, and I was like singing and like yelling, and her mom came home and was like, what is going on? And it was just this whole big thing where then we left her house and eventually like calmed down. But there was this big rush. There was this big euphoric kind of semi-dissociative high, which was enjoyable.
You liked it.
Yeah.
Oh
You
yeah.
got a good,
I mean,
positive
I would say
experience.
the first time was a little just odd. Maybe a second or third was also a little odd. And then I started to tune into like what I really enjoyed and appreciate and continue to about cannabis. But that was so, well, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think
Was there a joint or was it a bowl?
Yeah, it was definitely a joint, probably rolled up in like a torn out back page of a Bible or something extra sacrilegious like that.
Right.
And you're probably getting like the weed is like Mexican or some other kind.
Yeah, like wasn't great, but there was in hindsight, growing up in Northern California, even not great weed is better than what someone in Oklahoma may have been getting.
Pretty much 99% of the world.
Yeah. And as it turns out, anybody.
Exactly. Cool. So you already kind of alluded to this, but I'll ask the question anyway. Is there a album or a song or go-to music that you like to listen to, when you consume, or even though this is your sort of go-to kind of music?
Well, I will say, like throughout my teens, it was a layer. It was definitely a part of my love of music, without a doubt. Was smoke some weed, play some guitar, listen to Jimi Hendrix. Sounds like a great afternoon, right?
Yeah.
So I've always appreciated the heightened sensory when it comes to music and cannabis. And, I used to have like a black light had some palm trees in my room, and I'd listen to Baby I Love Your Way by Peter Frampton, a record player.
Yeah.
With some palm trees. And I'd just sit under that palm tree. I was a little high or whatever, like 16, looking up through the palm trees. He's going, I can see the sunlight, he's singing about being in the palm trees. And I was like, there's my little tropical getaway.
It's a great song. Very underrated guitar player, by the way, Peter Frampton.
Oh, he was a phenomenal guitar
beast,
player.
man. He's amazing.
With the talk box, nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Peter Frampton live, everything's better live. Like the Peter Frampton live album is better than I think the stuff from the studio, right?
Oh,
sure.
this was Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah,
Let there
for
be
sure.
No
Comes Alive,
mistake.
that's the one.
Let there be no mistake, right?
That's the one.
Wayne's World really nailed it, where they're like, that album was basically hand delivered to every suburb of America.
It's so true.
It's funny because I think there was some yesterday. I think it was a date of Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the movie, and I was just watching. We can talk about this. I don't want to take up too much Jesse's time, but how people feel about it, because there's a. It's funny. I'm wearing a Beatles shirt today, but it's funny that there's such a opposite parallel. What you feel about that movie? Like, I personally love that movie. I know it's cheesy. I know it's the Bee Gees, and
I love the Bee Gees, but the Bee Gees.
I know.
Yeah,
the Bee Gees were amazing.
No, they're in it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're it's them and
Right.
Peter Frampton, and you have and George Burns. I mean, it's
God.
it's really weird. I love that movie.
I didn't see that one.
I thought I didn't see it either. And I thought it was interesting they left it out of the Bee Gees documentary. Interesting.
They did.
Yeah,
But
right?
I encourage everybody to go watch the movie Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It is cheesy, but the music is amazing, and the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton they just do an amazing
That's
job.
awesome.
I will check that
All right.
out. That's a
So
good call.
next question, what has cannabis meant in your life?
It's like a companion. Like, I think of cannabis as somebody that I have a relationship with that appears in different forms over time. It's something that I can retreat to and meditate and have a quiet moment of reflection and insight. And it's something that I've also used to like challenge myself and be like, okay, well, can I do this high? Which may not have been like a healthy thing, but I've related cannabis to productivity, and I've related it to enjoyment and relaxation.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it works in its own way in both contexts, at least in my experience, very well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it depends on setting and your genotype, and how you connect the genetics of the plant with your own DNA, your own mindset, what's going on in the moment. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, this is a bonus fun question, if you can remember. You sort of kind of touched on it a little bit, so it won't be that challenging for you. But please describe what your room looked like growing up.
Oh, wow. I did not know that was coming. But your question definitely took me back there. I had a few black lights. I had black light posters of like Hendrix and maybe Zeppelin or the Doors.
Right.
I had a few like palm trees. It was actually a converted garage. At one point it was a garage, but it was now a full room. And I remember we divided it. We hung up like a curtain in the middle just to make it feel a little more like personal space.
Mm-hmm.
So that was this kind of big space that went into a bathroom and off into the kitchen. But it was in a corner of the house. So like when I was there, I felt like I had some privacy. It was nice, but it was covered with pictures. I can see High Times, center spreads probably pinned up on the wall.
Yeah, the centerfold of the butt of the month.
Why do you have pictures of plants on your wall?
Here's the Durban Poison, the butt of the month. I remember those.
So there's a strange mix of cannabis related imagery and music and rock and roll with some black lights and palm fronds thrown in.
It all goes together, man.
Yeah,
That's
it was
beautiful.
a real hippie hideout.
Love it, man.
Awesome.
It's beautiful. Well, Jesse, first of all, I want to thank you so much for being on. Where can people find out about you, about Lifestyle Entrepreneur Press, or am I saying it right? Entrepreneur Press? Did I say it right? Lifestyle Entrepreneur Press.
Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press, but you
I
also
should read it on there. I didn't even see it in the background. And where else can people find
yeah,
it?
thanks so much for having me on. It's been time flew by. Like these are conversations I don't have every day, as it turns out. This is really cool. Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press. That's us. You're welcome to check us out there. If you're interested, just Google my name, Jesse Krieger. There's a lot to find. I've done a number of podcasts and other trainings where I really teach and talk about publishing and the whole aspect of book publishing, not just my own story.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we should have you on again and really dive deep on when John and I write our book
Right.
together.
That would be a fun one. We could do a live brainstorming session. Maybe save you
All
guys
right, let's do it,
6,
man.
9 months of
The
agony.
whole episode.
Yeah. Oh, that's all. That's it. Because it's all here. It's all stuck in my head, and it's sometimes it's good to just get it out. Right.
I love that. That's what I enjoy those conversations most.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Jesse, have a happy New Year. All the best. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in 2021.
Yeah, happy New Year.
Thanks,
guys.
Jesse.
Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
All right,
It was
man.
fun.
All right. All
See you
the
guys.
best. Take care.
Peace.
Peace.
All right. Well, that was interesting. Thanks, Jesse. He's
Oh,
still there.
cool.
Let's just talk
Okay.
about him as if he's
I
still.
was like, can I leave? We're
Oh,
still
yeah.
recording.
You can leave if you want. You're
Yeah.
good. I can here. I just stopped him. Oh, he's still there though.
Oh, I am. Oh. No. Okay. Anything else you want to chat about? Otherwise, I can.
No,
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
take
Have
care,
a great
man.
Happy New Year.
All right, peace.
You too. Take care.
Yeah.
Well, that was cool. That's your
Yeah.
publisher. That made me feel so guilty because I realized I haven't read your book yet, and it's not personal. I just forgot to read it, and now I know, and I put it on my log. Like, read.
That's
Len's
fine.
effing book.
Wait till we actually have. I will send
Yeah,
you
like a
an
hard
actual
copy.
like
Okay.
a hard copy, because
Sweet.
we're already in. We're done. We're just making some final edits, and I'm choosing. So it's a couple things. I'm choosing covers for the book, and
Nice.
I also want to get some quotes. So I was reaching out to people. It's such a weird thing, man. I don't even know how to ask
Endorsements. Yeah.
I don't know how to ask
people
somebody.
I had asked people on my website to kind of, it's always a little awkward. Sometimes you end up kind of writing it for them.
I would do
embellish.
that. No,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to ask. Like, who do I ask, and who's going to be?
Well,
like, who do
yeah,
people
that
connect to?
would have been a good
No
question
idea.
for Jesse. But I think part of it is like who can best encapsulate kind of what you think, you're all about. But also I think whose endorsement can help you sell the book. Like,
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's a combination of both. So, man, I hate to name drop, but let's say it's a famous rock musician.
mhm.
Okay, great. Well, is that going to help me sell more books, or are people going to look at this? Oh, it's not for me because this person made a quote. I have no idea how to do.
I mean,
that.
I would maybe reach out to Andrew D'Angelo. I would reach out to the people who you think would be interested in reading your book that might have the similar audience to the audience that you want to read your book, right? So, but that's a tricky one, and I know that. But apparently, those endorsements can help. I don't know why. It's not like I've looked at the cover of a book and been like, oh, this person endorses it, I'm going to buy this book.
They
Like, I don't-
help. Yeah, there's
but they do
stats
help.
to
People do care.
People care, but so maybe I'll send it over to like Martha Stewart or somebody like that and get her endorsement.
Yeah. Why not?
Snoop, Martha, can I be on your show and help you cook?
That would be awesome. That would be. I mean, you never know. Never
You
know.
never know. I'll put it out there. So just to shift gears for a second, it's interesting because there is the stimulus package was signed by our sitting president, and I found it really interesting that the part of the bill that was the banking for cannabis cannabis banking was removed from that bill. So I didn't know if you have any thoughts on that. I thought.
I mean, it's this same old, right? The Republicans got a hold of it.
Exactly it.
And we're like, there's no way we're passing this.
It's negotiation. It's such bullshit, man. It's like, we have it in there. We slipped it in, but it's not going to pass. Like, why do you bother?
I don't even know why they bother. I mean, I think they're trying to get people used to it. Maybe there'll be some pushback from their constituents in certain districts, and that might, have an effect. Like if you're not doing anything, they can also, when they run next time around, they could say, oh, well, we supported cannabis. I signed off on that.
That's what I feel it is. I supported the bill. Look at my voting record, kind of thing.
Yeah, we're not there yet. I mean, it's depressing that there's still a very much of a conservative wing in the government that is not, that is so, we've talked about this on the show, that is so behind where the popular opinion is about cannabis. But
well, I don't wish people like pass on at all, but I feel like it's going to have to happen where some of the older generation just kind of moves, or there's an actual clear, definitive line from that to money, something that has to do with money, and then they'll jump in and support. What shirt are you wearing today?
Today I'm wearing Island Records. Do you remember
Island
Records?
Of
I mean,
course,
come
man.
on. They are,
Love
I just
Island
wanted to
Records.
represent. I mean, it's Bob Marley, it's U2. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the history is unbelievable.
Yeah,
And
it's
I always like, whenever I wear this shirt, people always are like, oh, I love Island Records. You know, it's one of these
Island
shirts.
Records. Amazing.
that-
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to start collecting record label shirts because I'm down with the record labels.
That's a good idea, man. I
Right?
used to have like Nervous Records. I'm
Oh,
trying to
that's a good
remember
one.
all-
Yeah. That guy, that little like shaky,
Yeah.
Nervous Pizza. They have,
Yeah.
I had an Epic Records. I just like the word Epic.
I had
And they were Epic
I
Records.
think I had a Relativity shirt too somewhere.
Oh,
I think
nice.
I think they gave me a Relativity shirt.
And there's so many good hip hop label, you know, like these like Profile Records. A lot of the labels that never really went that far. They were just
Right.
like just for hip hop, right? And they for me they bring back memories because they were the labels on the 12 inches that I was spinning, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that
Oh, yeah.
picture. Yeah. So
Well,
what'd you go with?
Yeah, I got a really traditional. Hold on, I'm gonna pick up my dog because she's sitting in my lap. I got a weird Beatles T-shirt.
Oh wow, look at
That's-
that! It's like
that's-
them on the pier of looks like possibly
Well,
Liverpool?
No, so I'm gonna. So this is the reunion concert on the
Oh.
rooftop. When
Okay.
So this is when they did the live rooftop concert in England. So there's an artist rendering of it.
Oh, that's very cool.
Figured, you know,
It's interesting that you
Beatles will
wore your.
Beatles.
I was just listening to the Beatles. Oh, why was I listening? Oh, I know. This is such a LA thing. Peloton, which I use my bike, just did a Beatles
Yeah.
mix, and I just did
right.
some Peloton rides to Beatles. But
Yeah,
you know
I
what?
have-
It turns out that it's really fun to exercise to the Beatles.
I have my Beatles.
I'm a
the
huge.
Beatles BBC.
The Beatles
my-
are almost like not even a real, like they're so good that it's almost like they're not even like a real band. Like it's like almost like this weird fluke. Like there's the Beatles and there's everybody else. Like how
Oh, yeah,
many
for sure.
hit songs can one group have? Like it was just beyond the beyond. And I'm almost spoiled by the Beatles because I just grew up listening to the Beatles, and to me every
Yeah.
song is like amazing. And I don't even like listen that much to the Beatles anymore because I listened to it so much earlier in my life. But whenever it comes on, and there's certain songs especially that I have a much more of appreciation for. My son had to study A Day in a Life for his class this year, and I thought that was cool. He had to like really study the song and like the different.
What an amazing
song. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter. I'm so grateful because this is like Beatles are something you pass on from generation to
Yeah.
generation. It doesn't matter what ethnicity, what economic, like it is passed on to everyone. And I got lucky. I don't know if you've ever been to Vegas to see the Beatles Love.
I haven't
show.
seen that show. No, is it
Fantastic.
great? Yeah.
It's
I would
my
love it.
favorite like Cirque du Soleil show.
Right.
Just
I'm
the
sure I would
music,
love it. The music is so great.
fantastic. And then Paul McCartney has a new album out, which is interesting. And he's on TikTok doing TikToks in his 70 plus.
Paul's the greatest.
And then he just posted yesterday that he's got the #1 single or #1 album or something like that. Like,
I want to be Paul McCartney, man. What a life. He just did it right. You know?
Amazing human being. Yeah, for sure. Lots of kindness. So do you happen to know what our #1 most downloaded episode is?
I should know this considering, but what is it? And we'll try to dissect why it is.
Yeah, it's the one that is DNA. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's the one that why DNA has DNA and your personal experience with cannabis, something like that.
Right.
Associated with DNA. I forget the actual title of it. I should remember, but I don't. But I remember it's the one that's has to do with DNA. I think it's episode 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
But the interesting thing that I learned from that, because I was listening, I'm like, man, if you really start looking at it, people are really interested in the science. They're really interested in the DNA part of it. So I thought that we could take a moment and I can tell a story really quick about, I don't want to divulge anybody's personal private information, but there's a person who's very young, in his very early 20s, who is associated with me in a certain way. And thought something was off. They disappeared for a few days.
Mm.
There was some stuff that wasn't being completed, and this person came back and said that they had a pretty serious situation with it. They ended up in the hospital.
Mm.
I was like, oh fuck, COVID, man. He goes, no, 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 I tested COVID negative. I'm like, okay, well, that's off the table.
Right.
What happened? And this person was going through finals in university. There was a lot of stress, wasn't sleeping, and was consuming and consumed some very high THC. Uh, I want to call it sativa dominant kind of hybrid, and ended up having a panic attack,
Hmm.
but didn't know that it was a panic attack. Had shortness of breath, was fearful that he couldn't catch his breath, heart
Mhm.
rate up, like all those things. I wouldn't think it's a heart attack, somebody being in the early 20s, but you never know.
Right.
So ended up checking himself in the hospital and going through. And he said there was a little bit of lung stuff, but nothing really, just from like regular consuming smoking. But this is like, this can happen at any age. And I just wanted to make sure that people understand when they're cultivating this, these cannabis at 30+% THC, people who consume on a regular basis, even if they have that increased heart rate once in a while, they that extra THC that they're getting, that can trigger something that's pretty adverse that was dormant in you. You may have
Mhm.
had a genetic predisposition, but you didn't know about it. So even consume that at early age, that can trigger that. So just being aware, and the conversation went through the genotype, right? And then the person was like, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm not alone. I thought that I was alone, and I was embarrassed about it. Oh my
Yeah.
god, panic. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed.
Right.
Like, why? This is common. Many, many, many people. Not everybody goes to the hospital with it, but many people don't report that they smoked weed and had a panic attack of some sort. So I'm like, I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'm glad that you're dealing with that. And let's go and figure out, first of all, what happened. So
Mhm.
there's a couple of things. Number one, sleep. We talk about set and setting, and sleep is really important. And I'm like, my eye starts twitching every once in a while because I'm not getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
And so there are genes associated with that, and we talked about this on an episode before, but I just want to point that out, that you create a perfect storm for yourself. So sleep, and there are certain genes that represent cognitive impairment more than others. If you have a genetic predisposition, you have the lack of sleep. And when you combine that with insomnia, predispositions to insomnia, you can't sleep really well. And depending on whether you're sleeping, if you're actually getting your REM state of sleep, all that comes up. Now you have stress. My finals are coming up. I have to do well in my finals. I have another project that I have to finish. All these things are on my plate. How do I deal with that? Well, guess what? I deal with that the way I deal with that normally. I pack a bong and I do some bong rips, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you get yourself in trouble, because that's a perfect storm. You set and setting. So you have stress, right?
Right.
All this
Lack
anxiety
of
and
sleep.
stress.
Right.
You have lack of sleep. You have a cultivar that's high, or strain, whatever, that's high in THC. And you have a terpene profile that's misaligned with your genetic predisposition. So when you're consuming that and it's a perfect storm associated with all that, yeah, absolutely. It can happen. And we talked about it before, vasodilator, heart rate. Oh my God, I can't breathe that well. I must have COVID or something else.
Mhm.
And then there's also a genotype associated with CNR1 and CNR2 that makes you more predisposed to PTSD. But if you really break that down, it's that movie that plays in your head.
Yeah.
So you have the situation, and then you're on repeat. And I know we talked about this before in different episodes, but I really want to point out to people that do not be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Speak about this. People really need to know you're not alone, because
Right.
you're in your basement, you're stressed out, you consume cannabis to help alleviate stress. Like Jesse had a great experience. You had a different experience. I had a different experience. We have this all the time. But young kids, if you have this experience, communicate, talk about it, educate yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't consume cannabis. It means that maybe that type of cannabis is not right for you, or at the moment, consume something different, or maybe lower your THC, change your terpene profile, or maybe don't consume cannabis for a couple of days. It's okay.
Right.
Other
And don't
ways-
give up, right? Like, don't give up on cannabis just because you had one bad experience. Like,
Don't give up. Don't give up on cannabis, and use it as a sign. So what happened, I say, is a sign. First of all, I said, learn some other techniques. Learn meditation. Do you meditate? No. All right. So try that. Well, what about some yoga? What about changing your physical state? Do some exercises. How about breathing techniques? There's a book called Breathe. That's really, really good. Like
Yeah.
most of us don't know how to breathe correctly.
I interviewed that guy on my
Yeah,
other
I know. I
podcast.
remember you
Yeah.
talked about that. And most people breathe out of our mouths. You're supposed to breathe out of your nose. Like simple things like that. Or Wim Hof. Just download the Wim Hof app. I'm not promoting Wim Hof necessarily, but I am promoting Wim Hof because I use it.
Do
I
you?
think it's fantastic. Yeah, I use the app, and I don't do it enough where I try to jump into ice cold water in the
Yeah.
Pacific Ocean, but I try to use the breathing method, but I'm still freezing my ass off.
Right.
Like, it's not working the way it's supposed to. I see him jumping into ice and it's fine. I see all these people, but I don't do well with cold. So I'm trying, but do not give up. Use different things and understand yourself. Educate yourself about yourself. If you're going through a stressful event, all these other things are happening in your body. You're not sleeping, all that stuff. So let's work and in little chunks. Get better sleep, put better food in your body, consume different cannabis, get your mindset right. All these things, it's because that could lead to a perfect storm. And that's kind of what happens. So I just want to point that out, that this is something that's really important. And sleep is a big part of it. And it's sort of an interesting segue.
I was
the
going to say,
next
are you going to
topic.
seg? You are. You're good. Because
I'm learning.
yeah, you're good at segging. All right, here we go. Sleep.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about
sleep.
sleep today.
We're going to talk about sleep because I learned, something that I'm trying to do in my business is because it's so complicated to get somebody to say, this is my genotype. This is my genotype. So my partner, Eric, and we talked about archetypes. So I used to be, when I was doing training and coaching and all that stuff, I would administer all these different tests, the Myers-Briggs and the DISC profile and the AVA and all these other profiles, because it's personality profiles. I'm always interested in finding out more about myself and about other people, because you can kind of put people into an archetype. And I think people connect to archetypes. I mean, when you say, even on dating sites now, they have, I'm an ENTJ. Well, I'm an ENTJ. Great.
Mhm.
I don't want to date myself, so I'm not
Right.
interested in any kind of thing. But so we try to kind of create this thing in our company where a person that has this genetic profile is similar to this person. They've consumed the same type of profile, and it works for them. So I can say, I am a hawk. Oh, I'm a hawk too. So whatever that is. So we're trying to put that together. Anyway, in my research to find out different archetypes, I came across something called chronotypes. So chronotypes are associated with sleep. And I want to have this conversation about sleep, because everybody brings, I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm good to go and I'm fresh, and I get running and I get going. Oh my God, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's it. I'm done. I'm fading. I can't. Late at night, forget about it. And
Right.
I'm like, I am, no matter what, I can get 8 hours sleep, 9 hours sleep. I wake up in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I'm always, every single time that I have to speak, I'm always telling people, you're getting 75% of me at best, because I'm best in the afternoon and I get going and I can still function at night. So this chronotype test, it allows you to go through like a quiz to find out which chronotype you are. And there's 4 chronotypes, which is the bear, the wolf, the lion, and the dolphin. So I'm going to do a drum roll. Do you have a Fred? Mr. Fred Nars, John. Thank you.
I should get a drum roll. I'm going to get a drum roll sample. Right now, I just have this one.
That works.
Okay, here we go.
So what is your chronotype?
I am a bear.
You are a bear. Okay.
I am a bear. What are you? Okay, should we talk about me first?
Let me read my
and we know this because we took a quiz online.
We took a quiz online. Yeah, anybody, there's a bunch of different ones, chronotypes, a bunch of different free quizzes. So you guys are welcome to take yours and post where you are, and then we'll go over it. So this is what it says, and this is the short version of it, the bear. So the bear chronotype. Most people fall under the category of a bear chronotype. This means their sleep and wake cycles go according to the sun. It says a bear chronotypes wake easily and typically fall asleep with no problem. Productivity seems best before noon, and they're prone to the post-lunch dip between 2 and 4.
That is true. That part's true. I'm not sure about always having easy time falling asleep, but yeah, 2 to 4 is tough for me. This is actually this hour right now, tough for me.
You're fading.
I'm fading right now. I just fell asleep, but then I woke up. No, this is tough though. 2 to 4 is when I get tired, especially around 4. I guess start crashing a bit. But anyway, so that's me. I'm a bear. I'm like, accurate. But I'm so typical. I'm just like the guy. The other thing it said about the bears, you're always snacking all the time. You're always looking for things to snack on. It doesn't matter. Whatever's out, you just grab it and eat it. That's definitely sense. Me.
Yeah. Well,
what are you? I'm curious. I have a feeling you're not a bear.
I'm not a bear.
I knew it.
I am a wolf.
Oh, a night creature? What does that mean?
Yeah. So this chronotype often has trouble waking up in the morning. In fact, it says the wolf chronotypes feel more energetic when they wake up at noon, which I don't. I wake up, even when I try to sleep in, I wake up the latest 8:30, maybe 9. But when
you wake up, are you hungry like the wolf? Sorry, I just had to say that.
Only when I'm in Rio.
Okay, right. Okay.
You want to
watching girls on film?
Duran?
Yeah, I'm watching some girls on film. Okay.
All right. So it says the wolf chronotype feels more energetic when they wake up at noon, especially since their peak productivity starts at noon and ends around 4 hours later. Wolf types also get another boost around 6 p.m. and find that they can get a lot done while everyone else is done for the day.
Well, so can you be a hybrid wolf bear? Because I'm a wolf bear. Because I feel like I have that. I love after everybody's done with dinner, I like to sit in front of my computer, and that's when I get a lot of really good work done. Yeah. I don't know why.
I don't know. Maybe you're.
I'm a wolf bear.
Are you
a lion?
You're a new one.
I could be a hybrid. Although I hear there's no such thing as hybrids. But anyway, okay, I ruined your fire. So you're kind of more of a night wolf. I was going to say a night owl, but you're a night wolf. You like to sleep late. You've told me that you don't like to really work in the morning. Like we've said, let's do the podcast at 10. And you're like, 10's not a good hour for me.
I mean, I will do whatever I have to do whenever, but I just know myself.
You know yourself. Right?
I can feel it in my body. So even though I'm working out, even my voice doesn't feel right until afternoon.
When do you like to work out? What hour?
I try to work out in the morning. I get up and I have a really weird workout regimen, but I get up and I get some coffee, walk the dog, get some coffee, and I come back and I try to work out right then and there, unless I have meetings. So if I have meetings starting at 8:30 or 9, then as soon as I'm done, I try to give myself a space. Mm-hmm. I need to work out before lunchtime. So it's that space between me getting up and lunch is when I try to work out, because I don't eat in the morning. I just have coffee and maybe I have some fruit. Depends, because when I take my supplements, some of them make me nauseous and empty stomach. So I have some berries or something like that to kind of hold me over.
I always fast in the morning. I mean, I have coffee and I have water, but I don't eat until about noon or 1.
Yeah.
Like a bear.
Like a bear.
I don't know. I don't know if bears do that.
Well, that makes sense.
The bears.
The bears. Do you want to do the Have You Heard?
Yes, and we should introduce the song right now. Queued up, Tommy. Bam. There's the Have You Heard song. Yeah, I would. Do you want to go first? I went through about 20 different things to play you, and then I was like, you know what? we're talking about Island Records today, and there is a song that I heard by a band called Negative Land that was out for 10 days. So I was like, I bet Len hasn't heard this because it was out for 10 days. Although, Len, you have a pretty good comprehensive sorry.
I try to listen to new music. Yes.
Yeah, you listen to a lot of music, so you could be the kind of guy.
A musical palette.
Yes, and even a 10-day palette could be used. So I'm going to share this song with you, and I apologize that I played it.
So are you doing yours first?
I'm going to go first. I never go first. Do I go first a lot? I'll go first. All right. So here we go. I'm going to play you a song that was out for 10 days in 1995. And it has a great audio beginning, one of the great samples. And you have to kind of listen to it all the way through. But you're going to enjoy this sample. You're really going to enjoy it. Can't wait to play it for you. Okay.
Now, we're up to our long distance dedication. And this one is about kids and pets and a situation that we can all understand, whether we have kids or pets or neither. It's from a man in Cincinnati, Ohio. And here's what he writes. Dear Casey, this may seem to be a strange dedication request, but I'm quite sincere, and it'll mean a lot if you play it. Recently, there was a death in our family. He was a little dog named Snuggles, but he was most certainly a part of... Let's start again. From coming out of the record. Play the record, okay? Please. That's the letter U and the numeral 2. The four-man band features Adam Clayton on bass, Larry Mullen on drums, Dave Evans, nicknamed The Edge, on... This is bullshit. Nobody cares. These guys are from England, and who gives a shit? Oh, yeah. It's just a lot of wasted names that don't mean diddly shit. For sure. You don't know where it is. Shit about you. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. Sounds like it's portable, yeah. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Yeah, it is close. Diddly shit. Diddly shit. Diddly shit. Diddly shit. Right. Nobody cares. It's getting stronger all the time here. Snuggles. Yeah.
Snuggles. Snuggles.
Oh, yeah. Snuggles. Oh, yeah. Okay. He was a little dog.
All right. Snuggles. So you can probably understand why that. So there was apparently, and I'm thinking about doing a whole podcast about this. There's a whole book written about just the legal woes they had trying to release that record through between the Casey Kasem estate and U2. Did not enjoy that record at all, and when it was out for 10 days and became sort of a cult classic, and then they were able to bring it back, I think, like 10 years later. But that is called Negative Land U2.
I love it, man.
It's fun, right?
It's very fun, and I remember listening to Howard Stern. He would play some of those Casey rants.
Oh, they were the best.
So, yeah, it's great when he.
I mean, when Casey loses it, the coolest man ever is just like, and I love that he's like, nobody gives a shit about this band.
Band from England.
Yeah, this band from England. Right, it's like the best.
Do your homework, Casey. Come on.
Yeah.
Casey's
well, in fairness to Casey, I think that was like in 1984. So I don't know. So yeah. So they weren't. U2 wasn't quite.
Maybe
there
they were
yet.
from England at that time.
They were from
All right.
England.
So
all right. What do you got? I'm excited. Here we go.
Mine. Hold on. Let me see if I can do this right. All right. Come on. Okay.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on.
You know who that is?
Out.
I do.
You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials.
Revolution will not be. Bill Scott Heron.
This right here for the number one shit with your number one. You ain't number one, just another one. Now everybody saying that they number one. Ring the alarm, the caterpillar keeps firing. Oh, we in the war, where butterflies keep dying. I'm a product of Parker, Lewis, and Kubiak. If I didn't do this, where in the fuck would you be at? See, there's a difference between us. When I spit hit arenas, you would drip from my penis. I eat lions and sip hyenas. You number one when it come to slaughtered mics. I'm trying to be number one in my son and daughter life. All you niggas, my little rapper babies. Y'all my children, y'all bit my shit and contracted rabies. Don't you grade me next to these rappers, baby, that's degrading. My style got so many different facets, I switch into so many different patches. I'm skipping class to be fascinating. My pen is like Big Ben, and shit just a classic waiting. Your favorite rapper come at me, I'll just decapitate him. Out here congratulating these haspers who had their highs. These
That was
rappers only
dope,
when they
man. I
match
really
just
like
because they
that. I gotta play that one for my son. He's gonna love that. Royce to
well,
5'9".
Yeah, Royce to 5'9". So I didn't get to the Eminem
sorry.
part, but Eminem is in there too.
Should we
But
play the
I wanted to
Eminem
ask
part?
you, it's all right. I want to ask you, do you recognize the sample?
Well,
So
okay.
here,
I know the first beginning was Gil Scott Heron, the Revolution.
Yeah, that's Gil Scott Heron, the Revolution Will Not Be Televised. You're absolutely correct. Let me see if I can play you that sample, because the reason why I played the song is specifically because first I really like the song. I like Royce
it's really good.
5'9" and M, but there is a certain part of the sample that I think you know this song.
Super familiar sample too.
Yeah, let me play this for you, and I'll play you the original.
Oh, oh yeah. Well,
Didn't Shaq do a song with them?
That is dope. Of course, it's not their sample.
No, I'm gonna pay you the sample.
What?
I'm gonna play the original.
Yeah, the original. Well, believe me, I can tell you the story of this guy. This is Fushniken's Don't Take It Too Personal.
It's called Ring the Alarm. And
Ring the Alarm, Tenor Saw.
This is the, yep.
This is one of my favorite reggae songs of all time.
I love it.
Hey, ring the alarm. Hey, whoa. Ring the alarm. And now the sound is dying. Whoa. Hey.
I mean, that's Tenor Saw. Oh, what happened? It's still playing. That's all right. Ring the alarm. I mean, Tenor Saw is one of the greats. I mean, if our listeners haven't heard Pumpkin Belly, it's very important that they hear it right now. Tenor Saw died violently, apparently, very sadly, died too young. Some probably should have been on our list of people who died too young. But I'm gonna play. I hate that I have Google YouTube. But we'll do. Here we go. All right. Yeah. So his name is Tenor Saw, and this is one of his greats. Okay,
Calling anyone with
Pumpkin Belly.
Pumpkin Belly.
This is a song of the old time proverbs, yeah. This is a song of the old time proverbs. Hey, hey, oh what a walk, oh a pumpkin belly. Whoa,
Oh my God, that was the greatest freaking record.
who asked me that know me old time granny?
We can take it out with Pumpkin Belly, man.
This is song, I wanna know.
Tenor Saw represent. We should have had him on too
I
soon.
wanna know.
But I love it. I love that you had Ring the Alarm on there. That was awesome. I'm gonna pull this off. Wow, that was great.
Yeah, I agree.
I think your song beat mine this week because
You should listen to that
everything.
song.
You had
That song
Gil
is
Scott
great.
Heron, one
Exactly.
of the great records. Then you had a little bit of Ring the Alarm, and he was sampling something else in there too, which I'm not exactly sure what it was.
Yeah,
I'd
he
have
was
to go
sampling
back
Ring
and,
the Alarm. He was
and check it
sampling
out.
Gil Scott.
Oh,
and
sorry,
there
I
was
cut you
another
off.
sample on that. But you hear the M's verse on that, and M's been getting so much crap.
Why?
You're still sharing your screen, by the way.
Oh yeah, we gotta stop sharing. this.
So M's been getting so much crap. Like he released a new song. I don't know if you heard it. I can play it for you next time. It's about a corona virus.
Oh, right.
And that it's really, really good. I think it's good. And I follow him on social, and people are like, give it up. You're old. And this is the same shit. I'm like, you guys like really listen. Like just listen, open your ears, forget that it's M, forget that it's anybody. Just don't watch the video, listen to it and tell me the brilliance of the wordsmithing. I mean,
Yeah, it's really phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. Which is, by the way, using samples. We were going to talk about doing this show about samples, the best it's use of samples on albums.
Oh man, that's going to be one of the
fun.
hardest ones for me to research because I'm obsessed with samples, and
it's going to be a difficult show.
it's going to be a difficult one.
Well, yeah, I mean, we know Paul's Boutique. I mean, there's things that we know that everybody knows, but it's interesting to find those little gems. And I'm sure.
Yes, every so often somebody will drop a sample, and you'll be like, "Oh man." And sometimes I'll be listening to a record with my son and he'll be like, "Oh, I love this. I love this." I'm like, "Yeah, because it's from like a Biggie song in 19." He hates it when I say that.
I do the same exact thing. My daughter hates it too. I'm like,
right.
And then
and I'll be like, "This is because he's doing this. He's really actually doing it." And he's like, "I don't know."
You know what I do? The next move right after that, let me play you the original.
Yeah. Oh, they hate it.
Here's the original. Say, "Dad, don't play it." I'm like, come on, you got to know where that.
They don't. Yeah, you got to know your history, son, daughter. Yeah, no, they don't like that. My son does not like me to teach him anything about music at this point. I think our kids are almost the same age, so we're going through the same thing. Yeah. All right. Well, good episode, man. Sorry, this bear's got to go hibernate.
Did you make any New Year's resolutions?
That's a very good question.
Do you do that?
I do that sometimes. And last year, I think I did hit some of my resolutions. I think I wanted to get more into podcasting, and I did that in a big way this year. Yeah. This year, I haven't thought of, I'm going to do it, but I don't have them ready. How about you? Do you have one that you're thinking about?
Well, I have a whole process that I do. So
wow.
I actually write down what I want. And then at the end of the year, I go through and I see which ones of those I accomplished. And if I accomplished 50%, like I'll write 50, I'll write 75 or 100. And I see if they're important enough to include into this year. So this year I recorded myself, just stream of consciousness, and I'll put them down as goals. But if I put them out there, then I feel that they're going to happen. So I have goals like financial goals for my company. I'm going to be around a raise, a $30 million raise. There's an amount of money that I want to walk away with, and then I also want to increase the podcast. I want to get maybe some sponsors or something like that. I can kind of get more visibility, get my book out, release my book, and get on the bestseller list there. Relationship. I think this year I'm open to having a fruitful relationship.
You hear that, ladies? He's
ladies.
available. He's
available.
This wolf is on the prowl.
Yeah. Oh. I have some health goals, like making sure that I continue to get a healthy exercise, keep up my hiking. I wanted to also meet 2 new friends, just people that connect with me and expand my network that way. Be a better parent, be a better father, be a better son to my parents, take better care of them. And then I want to learn a new skill. So those are pretty much my.
Wow, that's very okay. So I wish I had known about this. I would have actually prepared, because I was going to read mine. Mine is, let's lose 10 pounds. Okay, done. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to work on my bareness. No, I don't have any written down, but I love this idea of writing them down. And maybe I'm curious. When we get to the December, maybe on your next episode, you can tell me what % of your goals you met.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. And writing them down in detail helps to manifest.
Yeah.
And I do it in journals, and I do it every single year. So I'll be happy to share that.
I love that. All right. Well, another satisfying episode, Mr. May. And thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Small. And I appreciate it. And Happy New Year and all the very best.
All the best to you. We'll see you on the other side of 2020. This year could not end soon enough. 2021, here we come. This bear is about to go hibernate. Peace.